I felt quite different because a lot of people in my year were white, middle class, upper class, and I really struggled like connecting with some of the things that we were engaging in, some of the writing, some of the plays. I just felt like it was really tailored to a world that just didn't really like fit me in. So I was always kind of like more interested in doing my own thing, more at LIPA, and one of those things was really connecting with Scousers, connecting with people that lived in Liverpool, going to parties. I was always late for uni. I was always raving. I started going to a night called Chibuku, worried about Henry. And yeah, I just kind of fell in love with like the rave culture in Liverpool, very different to London. I felt like London growing up, particularly for the music that I was into, which was garage, grime, funky. Yeah, it had a bit of a different vibe when I was growing up. I started going out when I was like 15 with a fake ID, going to like old school garage nights. And growing up in London, nobody really called it electronic music. Electronic music, for me, sounded like something, reminded me of like EDM music. Coming from London, nobody said electronic music. And when I heard electronic music, it didn't really sound like something that I could really relate to or be part of. In London, you had grime, you had garage, and you had funky when I was growing up anyway. And obviously, grime was birthed out of garage. Garage was birthed out of house, kind of accidentally, actually. People were just speeding it up. Obviously, it came over from America. You know, I'm sure you know a lot about this. Came over from America. DJs in the UK started speeding it up. And the DJs and the pioneers at the time were predominantly coming from like the black community. And there was a lot of demonization around garage and grime at the time. The labels didn't want to have any kind of association with it because of the people that were pushing it, essentially. And there's actually a lot of parallels between, I'd say, like the grime movement and the punk movement. They were kind of both birthed out of rebellion. They weren't allowed on any of the, you know, major radio stations or national radio, which is where pirate radio kind of came through. And the expression of, you know, if you want something done, you do it yourself. They didn't have a space to, you know, play their music, come together as a community, and they did it themselves. The owner of Rinse FM is a guy called Genius, and the reason he's called Genius is because he found a way to essentially run up the roof, like the rooftops and the chimneys of all the flats that they were running pirate radio from, and he was able to kind of like cut the signal before the police came. And this is kind of where like this music that I'm really passionate came from. It came from real people. It came from working class and multicultural communities and cultures. And it's always been, particularly growing up in London and growing up in South London, Brixton, a real like bubbling pot of diversity. And something that I've always been really passionate about. And so moving up to Liverpool was a little bit of, I guess, like a culture shock in a way, in a different way. I loved how friendly everybody was. I felt like I became a lot friendlier moving to Liverpool as well. And yeah, in my third year, I started pulling away a little bit more from the acting, particularly because I graduated essentially during the height of COVID. So I was a 2020 graduate. And things just felt really fickle. I thought the world was in a really scary and threatening place. And yeah, I just felt a bit of a pull away from acting and the people that were kind of like part of it. And as an industry, again, I just didn't really see myself in it. And for my birthday, my friends got me a DJ class at Pirate Studios because I'd never DJed before, but I was always like making playlists, and I was always like the person before a party, like making sure that it was my aux cord that was being plugged into my phone. So my friends got me this pirate DJ course, and I did it with a guy called Liam, and we were mixing on drum and bass, I think. And then the next day I just bought a pair of decks on eBay because I just felt like anyone who's DJed, I feel like you will understand, like you just get the bug. So the next day I bought a pair of decks, I started DJing in my bedroom, and for a while, that was pretty much it. I just really fell in love with like getting obsessed with it and getting really like technical and like going over certain things. And yeah, I'd say I got a little bit obsessive with it because I think DJing, there's always something that you can like build on. There's always something you can learn, whether it's effects, whether it's looping, whether it's 3 decks, like there's always something to build. And I found that really, really addictive. And at this point, again, doing it like primarily by myself. In Liverpool at the time, there weren't that many female DJs. There was only really Hannah Lynch, who's also in Girls Don't Sink, just next to me there. And I actually messaged her in like 2018, 2019, being like, hey, can we be friends? Because I'd never really seen any other female DJs. And I think I asked her, like, can I shadow you? Or like, can I come and meet up with you? And she was like, yeah, obviously. And I think there's there's something really like powerful in that, especially for female DJs, or if you come from like, you know, a marginalized gender, the power of just like being like honest with other people and just being like, mate, can I get involved? Like, can I help out? The likelihood is they probably would have been in the exact same position. So they would probably like really benefit and value that kind of like connection and collaboration, particularly again within marginalized genders. Like the power of collaboration there is probably the core of Girls Don't Sink and how we started it, which I'll go on to in a minute. So yeah, I messaged Hannah. I was doing really small scale like bars. I think I used to DJ in like Slug and Lettuce, and I was like playing like garage, and everyone was pretty confused. But yeah, small scale events, putting myself out there, messaging people, being a bit of a beg, to be honest, because I'm a big believer in if you don't ask, you don't get. And again, being up north, I think if I was in London, I probably wouldn't have had that confidence, because London is just like a dog-eat-dog kind of environment, especially when it comes to music, innit, and electronic music. So in Liverpool, I was like, everybody's really nice, so I'm just gonna make the most of it and go for it and message people and meet up with people and see if there's any room for me to get involved, just because I was really passionate about it. And it was just something that was really interesting me at the time, and I just kind of felt like a bit of a lone wolf, like going through it. And then the pandemic hit, which meant I moved back home, probably like a lot of us, and I got even more obsessed with DJing because I had nothing to do. And actually, reflecting back on it, the pandemic for me, as much as it was, you know, a really weird time, it was probably one of the only concentrated times I had to just really just go for it, in terms of shutting myself away in a room and just like really honing in on that practice. And my mum would be knocking the door, turn it down. But I became even more in love with it. And I was actually showing my boyfriend videos of me that I would just set up like on my phone, of just like me DJing in my room. And I think Instagram and social media has changed so much since then. There was probably, you know, more pressure now to like get things right and content. And I find the content, like the word content, quite weird, because I never really saw it as content. I'm just filming something that I'm doing that I love, and I'm just going to post about it. And I think, you know, reducing what we do and how we play and what we mix and our art in a way to something that sounds very corporate like content, to me, sounds like it's doing it a disservice. Whereas now, I probably would never post a video like that, because Instagram used to be a lot more casual. And I think Instagram and social media has obviously gone in a way that, of course, it can, you know, act as a catalyst and boost your careers and your sound and your identity, particularly as a creative. But it's really difficult. And there's a lot of pressure in like getting that right, or getting those angles, or getting a videographer, or, you know, getting your sound across in a unique way. And I think a lot of people get really caught up on that. I still do now. And I'll touch on social media in a little bit later. But yeah, essentially it was lockdown. I was mixing all the time in my room. I was reaching out to a lot of radio stations, literally just messaging them being like, hey, can I do a guest mix? And again, people coming back being like, yeah, why not? And again, that level of confidence, maybe I wouldn't have had it if it wasn't for the pandemic, because I actually literally had nothing better to do. So I would just email, message, reach out to people, do different guest mix across different stations. And I was kind of like starting to build my name a little bit, and like my DJ identity, I guess, from these kind of interactions and opportunities.